Think about this is the fourth Advent quality, the quality of joy. And I want you to think in your life about an area in your life where you know you could experience more joy. Maybe a place where you've been fearful or anxious or upset or disappointed. Like this outer candle, I want you to think about where you need to light your inner candle for joy. Because for some of us, the holidays can not always be as joyful as we'd like. And so today we practice the spiritual quality of joy in our mind, in our heart, in our soul. So as I light the outer candle for joy, I want you to affirm with me, I light the inner candle for the joy of Christ. Together? I light the inner candle for the joy of Christ. So it is. Now will you join us as we sing together? And I want you to feel the joy of God that is within you. And sometimes in our life, we get so busy, we get so upset, we get so focused on this or that we forget that the joy of God is within us all. That joy is a quality of our spirit. That our spirit is naturally joyful. That no matter what's going on in our life today, we allow the quality of joy to be present in our mind, our heart, our soul. Spiritual joy. So take another deep breath. And feel the infinite, everlasting joy of your soul. That the joy of God is within you and all around you. The joy that is eternal. The joy that knows that God is in charge. And no matter how it looks in this moment, God is at work in our life for good and only good. For greater good than we can even imagine. So feel the presence of God. Feel the presence of joy. Feel all the good, all the joy that God is. And let joy transform you. Transform your mind, your heart. Transform every cell of your body. Release the full power of joy within. Feel the joy of God igniting your soul. That there is a deep, deep joy within you that is not attached to any of the events of your life. That this joy was with you in the beginning, and this joy will be with you until the end. So today we light candles for joy in every area of our life. In our work, in our family, in our finances. We allow joy to be the power that guides us and creates the next version of our life. That we are moving to higher and higher levels of joy. Take another deep breath. And as we move into this time of silence, I want to allow your spirit just to play in the joy of God. Take another deep breath and allow joy to go into every moment of every day. That we send joy to our future, we send joy to our past, and we live joy right here, right now. In the name and through the power of the living Christ, we give thanks. And so it is. Amen. So, do you have a favorite Christmas character? Like, do you have a favorite movie or story about Christmas or one of the characters? Two of my favorites are the Grinch and Ebenezer Scrooge. And the reason that they're so important to me is they're cranky. When you hear this, when you read the story of the Grinch, I've always been a fan of Dr. Seuss or even Ebenezer Scrooge. They're cranky, middle-aged men, right? Who are committed to looking at the world a certain way, right? And the way that they look at the world it's wrong, right? And the more that they look at the world as it's wrong, the crankier they get about it, right? And then something happens to them. As with the Grinch, their heart grows 3 sizes, right? And what happens in that moment is that they are literally transformed by the power of love. And Lark did a great job last week. If you were here for the play, we had a whole theme of love. She did a great job about bringing that story of love to life. But the reality is that after we've had that experience of love, the overwhelming experience is of joy. And I want to talk about joy during the holidays because we have a high expectation of joy during the holidays. And sometimes that expectation isn't met. And so for some of us, we don't really have a joyous holiday. Some of you know that my father passed on Christmas Eve. And for many years, Christmas Eve was a hard thing for me. It wasn't all sunshine and, daffodils or whatever it was, right? It was a hard thing for me, right? And I've always loved Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve was always, as a family, it was always our most fun time. We would, the family that I grew up in, we had a little house, and it would just be overflowing with friends and neighbors and family members, and it would just be stuffed to the gills with people. And there'd be a certain time where the kids had to go to bed, and the adults just had more fun than was probably legal in Southern California at that time, right? And it was so much fun. It was such a thing. And what I want to talk about today is the spiritual transformation that is depicted in the 4 spiritual qualities of Advent. And the last one is joy. So we began a few weeks ago by talking about hope and how fundamentally important hope is. That without hope, life looks hard. It looks like when we get knocked down and we don't have hope, it's really hard to get back up, right? And when we're going through the challenges of life, hope is the thing that allows us and inspires us to keep moving, to keep opening a space for greater good, to keep believing in God, keep believing in possibilities. Hope is that thing that reignites our soul when we're down. And then the second week we talked about peace and how fundamentally important peace is, and especially in the world today, how peace is the process of really surrendering and trusting God and believing that there's a power at work in your life, right? That hope and peace go together. And then last week we talk about love and the power, the transformative power of love to heal, to transform, to renew relationships and restore minds, and that it's all about love. And then we get to this 4th quality, and it's all about joy. that if we do the first three steps, if we really take in the first three spiritual qualities of hope and peace and love, we cannot help but get to joy. Like that joy's our natural way of our soul to be with God. And these four spiritual qualities are a promise that if you do your spiritual work, that you will live with hope and peace and love and joy. And I want to bring that to our attention. Like, I want us to really look at what is the level of joy that you live with in your life. And could you imagine taking your joy to a whole nother level? Can you imagine releasing the full joy of your soul during this holiday season and really experience the power of joy? Because for most of us, we were taught that joy is a two-part process, right? And the way that most of us were taught is if I get what I want, then the natural consequence will be joy, right? So if I can control and manipulate my life sufficiently to get everything I want, then I'm going to get to joy. So if I have the house, the spouse, the job, the income, the health, if everything is right, then the promise is I'm going to live in joy. The challenge is that when you get everything right and it still doesn't lead to joy, it's like, what did I do wrong? Because joy is not about addition. It's not about adding all the right things to your life. Joy is really about subtraction. It's learning to let go. It's what are the thoughts or the judgments or the pain or the unforgiveness that I would have to let go of in this situation to be in joy. It's a subtraction process. And most of us are so committed to our addition of our life. If I had this and this and this and this, right? And I'm going to go sit on Santa's lap and he's going to give me this and this and this. And I'm going to pray to God and I'm going to get this and this and this and this. And I'm going to keep adding and adding and adding. And if I add enough, I know I'm going to get to joy. And then you look at your life and you can't even walk through your house because you got so much stuff. And it's like, so when's joy supposed to start? Right? So if hoarding isn't our path to joy, maybe our path is letting go. It's subtracting. So during this holiday season, what's one thought, one belief, one fear you would have to let go of, one expectation you would have to let go of to be in profound joy, truly profound joy? Because your soul's nature is profound joy. So what would that look like for you to be in profound joy? In the ecstasy of God. And what if that was a promise that if we do our spiritual work, we could all make the transition, we could all die, we could all transition into the next phase with a just absolute joy in our heart and in our soul. In Romans, we read this: may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that the power of the Holy Spirit may abound in hope. In John 16:21, when a woman is in travail, she has sorrow because her hour has come. But when she is delivered of the child, she no longer remembers the anguish for the joy a child is born into the world. Right? So in some level, as a world, we're at this level of anguish of giving birth to a greater experience of life, giving birth to this greater experience of God, right? And in the anguish of everything changing, in all the ways that our world is transforming right in front of our eyes, there's a level of anguish. But the promise is that we are going to know the joy of being created in the image and likeness of God. That we're going to come into that realization that you are created whole and complete and lacking in nothing. And that's the joy that is overflowing. And it's just about tapping into that joy. You know, twice in my life, I have had two really, I consider them profound experiences with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I was a part of an organization called the Association for Global New Thought. And I got to serve on the leadership council of it. And one of the benefits, or one of the things that this organization did, was bring spiritual leaders to be in a dialogue with His Holiness. And in 2001 and 2003, I got to have really close conversations with His Holiness. And because this was the convening organization, and we'd bring world leaders or spiritual leaders together to be in a dialogue, because His Holiness wanted to be in a dialogue with other spiritual leaders, not to be just people ask Him questions and Him answer it. He wanted to be in a conversation. And so we created this conversation. Both of them happened in Italy. The first one happened in Trento, Italy, which is an interesting, Trento was completely bombed during World War II. So when they rebuilt Trento, they dedicated it to world peace. So every stone, everything they built back up was dedicated to world peace and to brotherly love and that idea. So during the second to the last day, this convening group of people were invited to a luncheon with His Holiness. And at the end of the luncheon, I asked if I could have my picture taken with His Holiness. There were only about 8 of us with His Holiness. And I asked if I could have my picture taken with him. So, Dave, can you shoot that up there? So I have this picture with His Holiness, and what you can't really tell is he's got a hold, both of his hands have got a hold of my one arm. And what happened is he kind of grabbed me and he kind of spun into me, right? So he just had like this lock. He's strong. He's a beast, right? And he grabbed me and pulled me kind of around him, and I said, I'm the only person I know that has a prom picture with His Holiness, right? I just should have got him a corsage, and right? It looks like a winter formal, doesn't it? And so, right? And so, and just look at his face. I mean, he thought it was so funny. And you just don't touch the Dalai Lama, right? I mean, you don't do it, right? You're respectful, and so the idea when he's actually pulling him around me, I mean, I have this, like, I'm in so much trouble look on my face because, right, it's like, holy moly, if I'm going to get caught with this, like, and it was just so adorable. It was a little moment of just pure joy. Now, his life, you could say, is hard. I mean, he is the exiled leader of his people. The Chinese are doing crazy stuff to the Tibetans. I mean, it's just hard. And yet, his playfulness is immense. 2 years later, back in Italy, this time at the Pope's summer home, Castle Gandolfo, we had another convening. This time, the Italian media was there, Italian television. We had about 50 spiritual leaders and about 250 people who sat and just witnessed the 3 days, almost 4 days of conversation. And at the end of it, one of the days I got to be the MC for the discussion. And so I sat right next to him. We were knee to knee for the whole day. And at one point, because the TV lights were so bright, he put on a Ping golf visor. So he's wearing an orange Ping golf visor. And I've got this, I don't have it, but I do have it, but I didn't bring it. So let's go to the next picture. So at the end of this, we get to be blessed. He puts a prayer scarf on us and puts it overhead and gives us a blessing. And because I had to bend down so far, he's a big guy. Because I had to bend down so far for him to put the prayer scarf, he thought that was the funniest thing ever, right? He thought it was the funniest thing ever because I had to bend so far. So he's laughing, and you can't really see, but I'm laughing. And so we just had this connection, right? So show the next picture. So the next picture, he's laughing so hard that I had to bend over so far that he punches me in the arm. I couldn't find the digital picture, but he punches me in the arm, and because that's the one that's taped under my office at home. He punches me in the arm, and so I tell people I'm the only person I know who's been punched by the Dalai Lama and has a prom picture with him, right? Right? And so, but I want you to look at his face. I want you to look at his face, right? Because some of us are taking life way too seriously, right? And I know there's challenges and obstacles and problems that we are walking through, right? But he has found the way through those problems and challenges and difficulties, and it's with the joy of spirit, right? Jesus said in Matthew 16, "Truly I say to you, unless you turn and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoever does not humble himself like a child, whoever humbles himself like a child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven." So I love this line, unless you turn, right? And there's this moment, right, for all of us over and over again, where we have to decide in that moment, am I going to be a cranky goose, right? And it happens over and over again. Am I going to be a cranky goose in this moment, or am I going to turn into my joy? And then over and over and over again, we have to decide if we're going to turn into our joy. Now, I want you to look, when it comes to the holidays, is there any part of this holiday that tweaks you? That's a spiritual term. I think Moses said it when he was wandering in the wilderness, right? Is there any part of this holiday that tweaks you, that upsets you? Like, how do you deal with crowds? How do you deal with parking lots? How do you deal with family members? How do you deal with expectations? How do you do with the holidays? And it's at those places where you could get a little cranky, right? Where you could lose your nut, right? I want you in that moment to practice turning. And I want you to turn into the joy of your soul. I want you to turn into a childlike joy that is greater than you can imagine. Now, do we have a God-given right to be as cranky as we want to be? Yes, because we have free will. Like, God loves you so much, you get to be as miserable as you want to be, right? But there's a moment we have to decide, are you going to live in that, or are you going to turn? And if you turn, it unleashes the full joy of God within you. So today I want to share 10 things that help us during this holiday season stay in our joy. And the first one is give. Number one, give. We know the old adage that it's better to give than to receive. And there was a test done by Dunn, Atkins, and Norton in 2008 that assessed the well-being of people who were given money. And those that were instructed to spend money on others tended to be happier than those that spent money on themselves, right? And I just want you to see that, right? That they gave a group of people, and didn't ever say how much they gave them. They gave them a certain amount of money, and half the group had to spend the money on themselves. It was a burden, but they had to spend the money on themselves, right? And half the group had to spend their money on somebody else. The group that was the happiest was the group that spent their money on somebody else. Well, but they didn't have all the stuff, right? And what I want you to see today is that as we give, it actually unleashes the infinite goodness of God. And I want to thank you today for all the ways that you've given to Unity of Prescott over the last 2 years during this pandemic. Your generosity has been so amazing. Not only have we been able to do all the things that we've done, but we finished downstairs in the last 2 years. I mean, we finished it. We finished downstairs. We have a completely different audio-visual system in the back that now can put all this stuff out online in a very different way because of your generosity, your support. And the other thing we just did last week or the week before is that we ordered a brand new heating and cooling system for this sanctuary. And that's all because of your generosity, right? And so in January or February, it's actually going to be warm when it's supposed to be warm and cool when it's supposed to be cool, right? And I just want to thank you for your generosity. And I hope that you really feel the blessing of your generosity in this ministry because your generosity makes all the difference in the world. The second thing that research has found is that debt steals joy. Debt. Being in debt is corrosive to joy. The studies are endless. So if you can get out of debt, get out of debt. 3, buy experiences, not things. Now, there's another interesting study. And they gave money to another group of people, 2 groups of people, and one group had to buy stuff, and one group had to buy experiences. Now, in the beginning, experiences like taking somebody out to lunch or going on a trip or just experiences, bungee jumping, whatever the experience was, right? And what they found was in the beginning, the people that bought stuff and the people that bought experiences, their joy was about equal. But over time, the people who bought stuff, their joy diminished much quicker than the people that bought experiences, right? The bought experiences. So the study is experiences are more joy enhancing than stuff. 4, sharing with others. Every study that's shown having deep, meaningful relationship with others increases your joy. It just does. That we need people in our life if we're going to maximize our joy. 5, there's a study that shows, thank goodness, with all the pictures that we have now on our smartphone, that if you take a picture of something, it actually expands your joy over time. You will actually remember joyous experiences, and it will actually expand your joy. There's also a study that shows that if you have a negative experience, and then after the experience is over, you remember 3 positive experiences, your joy actually, your body chemistry actually restores itself just by remembering joyous experiences. So when you take a picture of joyous experiences and have pictures of joyous experiences, like maybe in your bathroom, in your kitchen, on your refrigerator, it actually increases your experience of joy. 6, nature. During the holidays, it can sometimes be stressful. Nature is an antidote to stress, and it increases our joy. 7, there's a study that shows that if you save the best for last. So, you know how, save the best for last. I could spend a lot of time. Just that's enough. 9 is exercise, and 7 is save the best for last. 8, sorry. 8 was emphasize frequency over intensity. So this one says that regular experiences of joy are more powerful than expecting to have one big experience during the holiday. So if you get a cup of tea and you turn on your Christmas lights, or you drive around your neighborhood and look at Christmas lights, or you go to a little experience, that little and more is more powerful for your joy than one big joyous experience. That some people think that this party or this experience is going to be the one thing for their whole season, and little and more is better than one or fewer and a lot. I hope that made sense. 9, exercise. Exercise. It changes body chemistry. Exercise. Increase your joy. And the last one is, is anybody else addicted to Hallmark movies? I'm sorry. I have to admit, we clear off our DVR, and in the middle of November through about the middle of January when they stop, we record as many Hallmark and Lifetime, and Lifetime's are a little bit spicier than Hallmark, but Lifetime holiday movies, Christmas movies, and they're just adorable. Nobody gets shot. There's no car chases, right? And if you watch a Hallmark, there's only one kiss. It's at the very end when the couple finally gets together at the end, and they get one kiss under the mistletoe, and that's the whole deal. But there's actually research that shows that watching Christmas movies actually increases your joy. So I am not on commission from Hallmark, but I should be, right? So it increases your joy. So here's the deal, right? I know there are real things going on in your life. And I know that sometimes it's the hardest thing in the world to find your joy. And if I had a magic wand, I would tap it on each one of you so that everything in your life was perfect and just the way you want it. But for most of us, it's not. And part of this season, part of our spiritual work is learning to find joy right where we are. Because finding joy right where we are requires that we master our mind. That we actually learn how to master what we focus on. And that when we learn to master our mind and what we focus on, our joy is full. Our life is full. So I hope and I pray that each and every one of you has the very best holiday ever. And it may not be because everything in your life is perfect. It may be your best holiday because you decided it was going to be your best holiday. Will you pray with me? And I want you to just close your eyes for a minute, and I want you to feel the joy of God that is within you and all around you. That there is so much joy. There is so much God within you. And today I want you to find it. I want you to find the joy within. And I want you to choose that joy and to turn into it. Turn into joy over and over and over again. Turn into joy when it's easy and turn into joy when it's hard. I want you to know the joy of God. I want you to feel that infinite, everlasting joy in your soul. A playfulness, a childlike nature that opens the door to the kingdom of heaven. That the glory of God is right here, right now. And today we choose joy. And so it is. Amen.